Black Sabbath is timeless, ageless, and I guess can be considered the godfathers of our style of music.
Paranoid, War Pigs, Black Sabbath, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, Children of the Grave.
Good songs, sing-alongable stuff. Iron Man, Paranoid, early stuff that set the standard for all of us to follow.
There's just a vibe there, man, that, you know, it's unique. Your whole thing is kind of emulating people that you dug, and Sabbath is one of mine, you know, and one of Sean's too. A very, you know, very important band for me.
If Black Sabbath didn't exist, none of this stuff would exist. There would never have been, you know, Maiden and Priest, and then fast forward to thrash metal and this, that, and the other thing. They are the godfathers. They handed it down to everyone.
So Black Sabbath kind of enveloped everything that was percolating. They found it, put the right face and picture on it, then they became the masters and known as the inventors.
I think Black Sabbath's debut album, indisputably, was the first clarion call for heavy metal. That album starting with the rain, that doomy atmosphere, and the cover was this inscrutable kind of house with a witch in front of it. It just reeked of ominous and oppressiveness. It was like, what the hell is this? At the time that Black Sabbath emerged out of Birmingham, it was right after the war. A lot of the city was still in shambles.
I think if we'd have been born in a different part of the UK, I'm sure that the metal would have sounded different.
You have to have a place like that that is so deficient in anything resembling a distraction, a cultural distraction, things like that. You have to have this kind of like this wasteland to be able to build a foundation as strong and as crazy as heavy metal.
It's that industry, it's that, you know, the blue collar thing, working class, tough people, gritty, hard working. Metal has always been synonymous to that type of earthy, gritty, rough, concrete and steel type of frustrated, angst environment. And you can't get that if you're growing up in a, you know,
palace.
In a palace or posh.
It was dark. It was nasty. There really was a sense of marketing to it, in a sense where it's packaged all together. I really just think that Black Sabbath is the origin. Like, it really helped to create metal as the unit that we know today.
Geezer Butler was a very strong opponent of the war, partially because he'd seen the destruction that had been caused to Birmingham, and partially because war is hell. You know, everybody knows that people go and don't come back, and great atrocities take place. So he was a real stouch opponent of the war, and wrote political songs, anti-war songs, probably the most important being War Pigs. And, you know, it made a statement. It was something that you wouldn't expect from a band like Black Sabbath, you know, which at the time people were still perceiving as this occult group. You can't underestimate the importance of Black Sabbath.
It's like watching a spider web just get bigger and bigger and more intricate, you know? They brought a darkness to music, a controlled darkness, an orchestral vibe, married with that dark, bluesy riffage. And, I mean, Armageddon, you know? I mean, it doesn't get much darker than the song Black Sabbath. And that's the first song on the album. Are you kidding me? That riff alone, I just want to kiss Tony Iommi's ring every time I see him.
Judas Priest didn't come far after Black Sabbath. It took them a few years to get a record out, but they formed, you know, shortly after Sabbath made their mark.
Judas Priest took what Sabbath was doing and gave it a little more, I don't want to say bite, but a little more laser intensity. You had the twin guitar attack, so now you're getting into a realm that's even more orchestral and more emphatic, you know, especially when they really started to nail it with British Steel.
What they did at the time they did it is so great, and the dual guitar concept and really mastering that, and Rob Halford with the image. You were in or you were not in. They wore that like a badge proudly.
Don't you dare forget about them, because they set the tone for a lot of that. You've got the quintessential heavy metal singer and frontman in Rob Halford. You've got the twin guitar attack of Glenn and KK. Now you've got one of the best drummers in Scott Travis. You know, Ian Hill still laying it down. I mean, and they're still writing really great music. You know, that's relevance. That's longevity. That's how you create a career that will last long after you're gone.
Well, I just did this thing with Five Finger Death Punch. I realised that, again, there was a connection with that band. They love Priest, and the song is in that metal dimension. It's a rush to be with other musicians that go, you started my life in metal when I saw you in blah blah, or I heard so-and-so blah blah. It's a wonderful feeling, and it's inspiring.
The great thing about pioneering metal bands, be it Black Sabbath or Judas Priest, is that they are able to remain relevant without becoming a nostalgia act.
You have Black Sabbath with a new record and almost the original lineup, and sounding like the original Sabbath.
I'm absolutely blown away. The Black Sabbath is the #1 album now. It's really cool, and it must be amazingly fulfilling to them as a band to have a #1 album.
For me, on a musical point of view, I'm really excited about the next 5 to 10 years. We're making a new record, which we can't talk about because we've been verboten by the label and management, but the exciting thing is we are making a brand new record.
It's interesting that Sabbath are doing the same thing. You know, they reunited and done the 13 album. You know, we keep mentioning Sabbath and Priest, you know, back in the day. Now they might be the flag bearers of the new wave of old British newness.
The new wave of old metal.
Yeah.